Now, we've got to convince leaders, as I said, to commit to building shared societies. And I think there are two objectives in our work. One is to get them to say it must be done. President Clinton, talking with us about this, said there is no alternative. If we can't figure out how to live together and celebrate our diversity without infringing on the dignity of people who are different, then we're lost. We're nowhere. There's no option. So that's the first step. The second step is showing them that it can be done. And I'll very briefly tell you what we're doing at the Club of Madrid. This Shared Societies project is looking at a focus on leadership for building shared societies. We've come up with a set of commitments or action areas. We call them the 10 commitments. Our sense is, from talking with political leaders, they're non-negotiable. You can't say, well, I'll work on this one but not that one because it's too hard or too expensive. But those are 10 action areas, and there are different options for attacking them. There are different policy options. And we're building a toolkit of specific policies and practices that have worked in countries dealing with these issues to back up those suggested options, and we're ready to work with leaders who say, yes, we need to work on this, yes, we'd like to learn from other contexts, from other countries, and how they've done this. We'll work with our members, many of them who've successfully worked on these issues in their countries, and take the 10 commitments and the toolkit and be ready to work. We'd like to work with the OAS. We're talking with the OAS about doing some of this in the region, and I think that there's a lot that we can do. I'll just end on one point. The Wolfenson Center at Brookings has looked at some of these questions, particularly looking at youth. And they've found that the exclusion of youth, they've looked at in Arab countries, this is the Middle East Youth Initiative at the Wolfenson Center, and looking at the exclusion of youth in housing, in employment, in the opportunity to volunteer in NGOs, in waiting for marriage. There's an average of an 8-year waiting period where youth are basically excluded from productive societal life. And it's costing, in some countries, in Egypt they estimate it could be costing 17% of GDP, in Jordan 7% of GDP. And the more interesting thing, and here's where I'll relate it back to this hemisphere, is that their research has suggested that without increasing public spending, but spending it in a more efficient way, the levels of youth exclusion could drop dramatically, up to 80% in some countries. Looking at the index of the potential to decrease youth exclusion, looking at the bottom 24 countries, 6 of them are in the Middle East, North Africa, but 8 of them are in Latin America and the Caribbean. And you've got Argentina could decrease the youth exclusion by up to 74%. Dominican Republic, Peru, Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago, Brazil, Nicaragua, Ecuador, all of these countries could reduce exclusion by 50, 60, 70% with more efficient public spending and without increasing greatly the public spending on inclusive policies and practices. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Sean, por esa presentación. Creo que nos ha dado un contexto muy interesante, sobre todo este énfasis que seguramente lo vamos a escuchar en los otros dos panelistas relacionado con el liderazgo, con la educación, con el advocacy que ustedes realizan de forma o por lo menos tratan de ser tan efectivos. Yo tenía un compañero de trabajo que decía que para que muchas de estas cuestiones funcionen se necesitan varias cosas. Pero primero voluntad política, segundo voluntad política, tercero voluntad política y luego ya podemos ir más adelante, porque si no, no se pueden lograr muchas de las cuestiones que Sean nos decía.